Hi, this is High Templar with my new video on Total War Warhammer, and today we'll be talking about new DLC, the Wood Elves. No, they haven't announced the Wood Elves yet, but we will get them at some point. There was a leak saying that actually the next DLC will be Wood Elves. However, this is not certain. That was just a leak that was somewhat confirmed, but not in total, so might be right, might doesn't have to be right. However, this DLC will come out eventually, and I just wanted to make some mind gymnastics about how this DLC will look like, what will happen there, and about the army of the Wood Elves. So let's just get straight to it. This is the map of the old world, and you can see here there's the Empire, the Norsemen, Kislev, Border Princess, Tila, Bretonia. Now this is the Lorraine Forest. It is already present in a game, and it's somewhat interesting how it's placed in the game right now, because this is the map of the world, and as you can see here, the Lorraine Forest, which is here, is nothing. It doesn't actually belong to any province. It's just empty space in the map. And this is actually quite a big empty space in the map. So that would strongly suggest there is something there, and they do want to put it there. And the Wood Elves is pretty standard faction in the Warhammer world. So this is how it looks right now. You see very dense forest. This is unknown terrain, but it does have Wind of Magic, so you might think there is something there, right? So I will start the Wood Elf army. I'm not actually sure about how it will be implemented when it comes to campaign, because this will obviously, the Wood Elves are kind of stay in the forest types. They do travel to other forests very, very rarely. Mostly it's a defense about forces that are invading the Lorraine Forest. And their main enemy is Beastmen, so that's why I was thinking that there is probably those guys will be probably going out soon. And even in the main campaign, the Khazrak One-Eye Horde is Talia, but not that far from this place. And there are other Beastmen hordes in nearby area after the Beastmen DLC, so you might expect there will be some fighting between the Wood Elves and the Beastmen, both being a wood faction of a sort. However, I'm not sure if they will be. I can think that they will be able to conquer some lands of men. Probably not the mountains, but not really sure how this will work out. However, I do have my ideas about the army. So, and the army of Wood Elves is very interesting. Something we haven't seen from the time of Rome 2, I would say. Because then army of Wood Elves are mostly shooting characters, and they are very fragile. So this is something similar to Cimmerian army in Rome 2, where there was only young access for the main infantry line. The rest of them was pretty much shooters and cav and stuff like that. So this is you are seeing the miniatures from the Warhammer tabletop game, and these are the Glade Guards. This is the most iconic unit for the Wood Elves. They are your standard range infantry. They can fight, they have swords, they are decent fighters. When it comes to this attack and defense, and I would expect also the damage. The problem is they are very fragile. They have no armor, and they don't really have much health also. So this being a main unit, it's kind of a problematic, I would say. But like before with Cimmerian army, it was doable, but it was hard. In this case, it will be even harder because current implementation of Total War Warhammer relies heavily on melee. So let's see what else we can do here. We need to have some kind of a defense for those guys, and that will be the Eternal Guard. The Eternal Guard is your standard spear unit, and this might be pretty much the same in Total War Warhammer. However, in Total War Tabletop, they have a very special rule. Those guys, those spears, are actually armor piercing. It might be, but not necessarily be implemented in Total War Warhammer. We will have to wait and see, basically. So far, the only long-range infantry melee unit that has armor piercing is halberds, because they are so damn heavy. Will we see this as an armor piercing unit? Hard to say. This is your mainline Eternal Guard unit. As Glade Guards, I would expect their standard 90 in a unit. The Eternal Guard will probably be a standard 120. And there is not much else to say about them. They also have very little armor. They do have shields, so that's excellent. I am hoping those shields will be slightly bigger than in other factions in Total War Warhammer, but that's unlikely. They will probably block 50% of missile fire, and that's it. So the next unit we have is slightly upgraded Glaive Guards, and these are Deepwood Scouts. And I would still expect for those guys to have unit of 90 if the creative assembly will follow the tabletop closely. They might not. This is problematic with them because they change stuff a lot. I mean, they do change stuff, and I will talk about it more deeply in a moment, but I do expect those guys to be just upgraded range units, possibly having access to magical arrows. Normally, in normal tabletop, you would have most elf units to have access to different kinds of arrows, and that would not be hard to implement. However, because we've seen that in, say, Shogun and Rome 2 and what's not, when you could switch a button on a unit and those units will start firing fire arrows, for example. So it wouldn't be that hard to implement. However, I don't think they would do this. And I don't have very good explanation for you why they wouldn't. I mean, in tabletop, Elven Army relies heavily on different kinds of arrows. I do think they, in Total War Warhammer, they got rid of many skills that were previously seen in units like, I don't know, shield wall and similar things, or square formation, different kinds of that stuff, because they would rely more heavily on the heroes and lords using those buttons with those skills. So having more of them would be quite problematic. Although we hear that in the Grim and Grave DLC we would already see some of the mercenary units will have one or two special abilities that the normal unit that those mercenaries coming from would not have. However, that might not be an active skill, that might be something passive. So that's enough for those deep wood scouts. Next interesting unit is I will try to change between melee and range units. So these are Wildwood Rangers. Wildwood Rangers are essentially Eternal Guards that with two-handed weapons. I wouldn't get into the lore. We have time for that, and I'm not an expert. I'm sure you will find somebody more reliable to tell you that what is Wildwood Ranger. But in the essence, they are two-handed infantry that you would see. They will be probably 120 or 100 units, probably 120. They are more elite units, but still probably not that expensive and probably not that great because they still have pretty much no armor, at least in tabletop, and not much they don't have shields and they don't have much health because elves. So that would be still a problematic unit. I don't think there will be I don't think that they will be that expensive, probably around 500, 600, 700, something along those lines. Unless they will make it very small, then it should be cheaper. So far, every unit in Wood Elf army is very brittle. And then we come to those guys. These are the Trikin. And again, I wouldn't get into the lore. They are pretty much surrounded by some dead wood and stuff. And these units can be interesting from the point I'm not sure how Creative Assembly will implement them. They are basically your only mid shield unit. They don't really have shield, but they should have some armor and some health. So the problem is how they will be implemented. The Trikin is pretty much the similar size as a cavalryman, bigger than your normal model. So we might see them in, say, 80 units per battalion and 80 entities per battalion, and there will be slightly weaker than, or we can see them quite buffed up and there will be 12 of them only, or 24. However, I don't think we will see 24, but 24 is another option that we can have. And depending on how many of them will be in this unit and how powerful their actual stats will be, because in tabletop they are pretty powerful, they have 3 attacks and stuff. So they do have some hitting power, they do have some defense and some staying power, but depending on how powerful the stats exactly will be and depending on how many there will be in a unit, the cost of the unit will change. I would hope there will be 24 of them and they will be quite powerful beasts, around 700 or 800, similar to trolls, but smaller than trolls, but still a fun unit to play. I would expect that, but I'm not sure that will happen. We will see. I'm not sure if they will even be in the game. I mean, it's hard to say which unit will be implemented and when. So the next guy we have is a treeman, and I show you this. This is entire Wood Elf army. We will see other units like that later on. But this is the big bad guy in the back, and I'm showing you him so you could see the size of him. This is the tree man just in front of him here, and this is him. So in another photo, you can see how big those guys are in the back, right? So the streamers are pretty big. Now they are not as powerful as giants in tabletop, at least, not by far. But the way that creative assembly works, I do believe they will be buffed up and they will be implemented as a single entity giant tree unit. This is my belief. They will be obviously, because bark and stuff, they will have more armor than say giant, and probably more health than a giant. Maybe not, but they will have less attack than one. So some kind of tanky unit similar to say Kolek, maybe. I mean, he has lots of some armor, lots of health, lots of health, but not as powerful as some other lords when attacking. So maybe that will be something similar here when compared to, say, giant. Maybe they will be single entity or less expensive. I don't feel like there will be 12 of those. No, I don't feel like that. Maybe they will implement something strange like 4 of those, but I don't really think so. I do believe there will be one single model that will be pretty powerful giant unit in Wood Elf Army. So let's go further to the way to the Way Watcher. These guys are pretty elite archers in the army of Wood Elves. As all Wood Elves, they would probably have a Stalker ability. I believe it was implemented in Beastman DLC when they move and they are not seen on the battlefield until you get very close. I'm pretty sure those guys will have it, and I'm also pretty sure those guys will be, if implemented, sorry about that, they will be pretty powerful range unit. However, I do believe their numbers should be a bit smaller because of that. In tabletop, they are very powerful indeed, but quite expensive, as I said before. Next unit, we have something of a legend, the War Dancers. The War Dancers is a pretty naked unit, as you can see. They are, as most of other Wood Elf units, a glass cannon. They are very hard hitting, very fast, and have pretty much no armor and very little health. So think Slayers, but less health, but more firepower when it comes to actually hitting not giant units. I'm also very interested in how those guys will be implemented because they are pretty elite units. I would say there will be probably like 80 or 100 of them in very expensive units similar to Slayers. But depending on the unit size, we might see different prices and stuff. No, but yeah, I do believe it would be 80 to 100 models in single battalion and pretty expensive. Very useful if you can get them to flank the enemy. Would be pretty fun to watch as they fight. Also, would be pretty interesting to see how they will implement it when it comes to animations, because I love the animations in Beastman DLC, but those guys are, well, dancers. So, pretty fun to watch, I would say. Then we have Dryads. Dryads are the shock troopers of Wood Elf's army. Probably they will have a bit more health. Still pretty much no armor, maybe a bit more armor. I would say also between 80 and 100 models in a single unit. Can't really say how they will be implemented. possibly they will be the only non-spear melee unit that has some punching power basically. Not sure if they will even get into the first in the first DLC, because not every unit was implemented on the first try. So, and we see in the Agreement Grave that some units will be added later. So, but yeah, I'm pretty sure the Dryads are staple of Wood Elves' army, so they will be there and they will be pretty powerful. Not that much staying power, 80 to 100 unit price depending on that. And that is it for the infantry. Now, when it comes to cavalry, we have a standard Glade Riders. The Glade Riders is a very interesting unit that in tabletop have both spears and bow. Would it have it in Total War Warhammer? I'm not sure. I mean, it's possible. It was done before. I mean, we had units having spears and some kind of we had units with spear and bow on the ground, like Cimbri bow women, and they did it very well. We had some similar units in Rome and Attila. Maybe we'll get something like that. Bow unit with a spear would be pretty interesting, and like I said, Creative Assembly might implement this spear to be armor piercing. So these pretty wood elven spears are pretty powerful. If they would do that and would implement both of those, that would be pretty amazing. Although they can implement two different kinds of Glade Riders, one with the spear and one with the bow, or make it only bow skirmish cavalry. It's possible. Those guys have pretty much no armor and will be very vulnerable to any other missile unit, but they will be very fast and should be pretty hard hitting. So the next unit is very interesting, and I would very much like to see that, are the Sisters of the Thorn. So those gals do mount stags. There are pretty, I mean, these are not your basic cavalry. These are like higher to the end cavalry. They are skirmishers. They do not get into the fight as often, but they do wield poison javelins. And we've seen lots of poison already in Total War Warhammer, so I do hope they will be implemented the same as in tabletop on the stags, throwing those poison javelins. They're really pretty awesome. The next units are Wild Riders. Wild Riders, again on the stags, are elite, not infantry, elite cav unit for Wood Elves, and they are pretty damn powerful. However, again, they are very brittle, although the health from the stag might help a lot. They still have no armor, so they will be vulnerable to the missile fire. But you know, with enough health and those spears, they can be pretty powerful, and those stags should be a powerful mount. So it might be very interesting to see them. Although I wouldn't expect a unit that will be able to take on, say, Chaos Knights or any other elite infantry, because low armor, obviously. So the last, I mean, I wouldn't call them cav, but this is a flyer unit, and this is one of two flyer units that, or three, depending on what will be there. This is a quite interesting unit. These are the Warhawk Riders, and this is the only unit. When all the cav before that, I'm pretty sure there will be 60 in the model. I don't think that would be right for the work of riders to be that much. I would see them as 24 as pretty much the only unit that I'm kind of expecting 24. It would make sense to have 24 in the mini unit. They might be beefed up a bit and made 12, or they might be less expensive and there will be 12 of them. I don't know. I'm not sure. We can see something like that in Goblin Wolf Chariot when there is a similar unit that is not doesn't have that much of hitting power but can be used somewhat used in melee. I'm not sure. This is an interesting unit. They can harass the enemy pretty well. They are very fast. They can hit and run. So this will be interesting to see them. And 24 would make sense for like normal price range, but we might see, like I said, we might see them a lot less. And even if they are very low stats, we might see like 60 of them or 40. However, I don't think that's likely. Next unit is actually, I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure they will be available as a mount. And this is pretty elite mount, a great stag. There might be a unit like similar to, I know, Razor Gore, but probably will only be a mount, and it will probably be elite mount comparing it to Unicorn. However, it might be something very interesting to see your lords and some of the heroes probably mounted. Would be pretty cool, I would say. Probably won't see it as a unit per se. With the unicorns, we might see that, but I also think this will be only implemented as a mount. So as you can see here, as a mount, this will be probably a lower tier mount down the stack, because it's how it is in the tabletop. But that's not a sure thing. I mean, like I said, the developers in Creative Assembly did on time change stats a bit, like they did, say, in Ragnarok Spider and the Giant. So, I know, we will see. However, what we will see most probably are the Great Eagles. Great Eagles, I would see them as a unit of 12, pretty powerful, on par maybe with Vargeist. Also a flying unit, able to go to the melee very fast. This is what I would see them. They might be slightly more powerful than Vargeist, then their price would be obviously, they would be more expensive. Or maybe 24 units in I mean 24 entities in a unit. I'm not sure about that. But I would see them as 12, and I would see them as quite expensive, slightly more powerful than, say, Vargeist. Pretty fast. Yeah, something I would like to see actually very much. And then we have something that I don't think we will see. It's possible, but I'm not sure, because we missed some of the units, like, you know, Chaos Dragon, for example. So I'm not sure if we will get a Forest Dragon, but it would be very cool, because we do have some other units. Like Terrorgeist is, I know, Terrorgeist is not a dragon per se when it comes to the lore, but it is similar in many ways. Maybe we'll get this guy. It would be very cool if we would get this guy. I mean, he's a dragon, he has breathing weapon, he is pretty powerful and has some armor. Would be very interesting to see him. However, you must remember that those guys are more powerful than, say, Terrorgeist. I mean, way more powerful. So, at least in tabletop. Tabletop, the Terrorgeist is hard hitting, but doesn't have that much health. Although, it was already buffed up in the Total War Warhammer, so I don't know. I just don't know. I would like to see the Forest Dragon, but I'm not sure if it will be implemented. So maybe we'll go now to Lords. So the first Lord we would see is Glade Lord. Your basic melee lords. I think we will make it to the game. It will be interesting to see this guy. I mean, not really. When come to think about it, he's not really that interesting, but every faction has your basic melee lord, so I would expect him to be there. I'm not sure what to say about him except for the fact that he has no armor, or very little armor, so you know, he will be less armored lord on the battlefield, which is problematic because, archers and stuff. The next lord we would see is Spellweaver. Spellweaver is a powerful mage, and we've seen already many units, many armies using some kind of casters as their lords, like vampires, necromancer, and well, in pretty much every army, when come to think about it, like chaos. Obviously not dwarves, but there is some caster character lord, and I would see him here. I would see the Spellweaver take this place, but there are some interesting possibilities except for those two. Normally we would see only two lords at the beginning of the game. Then we are getting two new lords with the Grieved Grave for Vampire Council and Empire. But it would be interesting to see. It would be interesting to see a range lord. That would be pretty cool to see. Not sure if we will actually get to do that, or sorry, yeah, that's what I wanted to show you. So this is Three-Man Ancient, and Three-Man Ancient as a lord is something that would be very cool. I mean, he is extremely powerful creature like Kolek or something. Would be very cool to see him actually command an army. But like I said, I would bet for lords like Glade Lord and Spellweaver. So next to units that we will next we will talk about heroes, and finally we'll talk about legendary lords at the very end, because there is some controversy and I'm not sure exactly how it will be worked out. So when it comes to the heroes, we have your basic melee hero called the Glade Captain. Now, Glade Captain is pretty much Glade Lord, but smaller, and the same as we have Empire General and Empire Captain, or we have Dwarf Lord and Dwarf Thane. Pretty much the same story. So he will be your basic melee lord, most case. We will probably see him, although it will be probably a bit boring. I would see one change for him, and I will show you who that will be in a second. And then we'll have your basic Spellsinger, which is slightly less powerful Spellweaver. So again a lord. Again, slightly lesser powerful version of a lord. So she will be pretty interesting to see. When it comes to the magic, we will most likely see a new realm of magic, and that will be life magic, because those guys used both beast lore and life lore. Although Spell Weaver 2 in the tabletop has access to many more, but I'm not sure. I'm sure it won't be implemented. When it comes to Spell Singer, it will be interesting to see new lore of magic and all the life spells. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we will have a character like her. Then we have something very cool that I would very much would like to see in this DLC. Because for vampire accounts we have several different kinds of heroes. Would be very cool if the Wood Elves, having few kinds of heroes, would also have Shadow Dancers. And Shadow Dancers are basically a special war dancers. So they have no armor, but they are very powerful indeed, and have dances, so to speak, that works like, I would see them works like shadow dance. I would see it work like a curse in the Total War Warhammer, similarly to the roar that we would see on the Karl Franz mount. So would be very interesting to see a very hard-hitting character that you may have to babysit a lot because he's very brittle, but can do a lot of damage. That would be very cool. The other character is a Waystalker, who is pretty much your range hero, and he is also pretty awesome. So something more powerful than Master Engineer or something more powerful than Witch Hunter, that would be pretty cool also. And I would see him as replacement to the Glade Captain, even. That would be very interesting to see Spellsinger and uh, Waystalker. The last kind of hero is actually a Dryad. Is a Branch Raid, and she is your also damage dealing unit that is a melee, that goes into melee. She's pretty powerful, and well, we've seen similar units already, so would be very cool to have her as a hero because, Glade Captain is boring like hell. And lastly, I would like to talk about Legendary Lords. So a sure bet when it comes to the Legendary Lord is Orion. He is a king of the elves, and as some people would argue that his wife is actually somebody who ruled the elves, I would see him as a leader of this faction. He's very interesting character. Also, he has regeneration. He has lots of cool stuff that I would very like to see. He would be very interesting character, and in most cases we would see characters like, Karl Franz or Archeon or whoever who is leading will be actually your first Legendary Lord, so I would see this one. And for the next Legendary Lord, it's actually quite of a mystery to me. I will tell you some of my picks, and then, I don't know, we will see. So, first of my picks would be Nesra and Arakan. However, I'm pretty sure they won't be there because there is two of them. So those two Shadow Dancers are pretty much the legendary creatures in the from the woods, and that would be very interesting to see them in the battle. But because there is two of them, I don't think either of them will be implemented in the game, and that's a shame because they have very interesting backstory and they are, twins and stuff. Maybe we'll see them in DLC. We will see. But they will be pretty interesting Legendary Lords. The other very interesting legendary lords that I'm pretty sure won't be there is Raicha. She is, as you can see, a Dryad, but she doesn't really like Wood Elves that much. So there is a conflict of interest there. She would be, I mean, normally you would expect her to lead, Dryads, Three Kin, Three Men, and similar force from the Wood Elves army, but I don't see her leading her. But the Creative Assembly might not put as much detail to the lore when it comes to those legendary lords, so we will see. However, I don't think we will get there. The next one is actually Durtu. He is an ancient treeman, and I would really like to see the monstrous big thing like the Kolek, for example, leading an army. That would be very, very cool indeed. Having some pretty big punch from the very beginning of the game. Like I said, like with the Kolek, he's pretty powerful from the get-go. The last one is somebody who I actually think is the best bet for our next legendary lord, but my opinion, the most boring one is actually Ariel. So she's wife to Orion, and she will be your spellcaster, legendary lord, pretty much as is the story with Carfrance and Balthazar Geld. So she will most likely have access to the Lord of the Life, Lord of the Beast. I'm not sure actually what more, but probably that's it. Would be, and like I said, least interesting of the lords. I would see the previous ones more, but I think this will be what we will be stuck with. And I don't think that's necessarily that bad. It's just, a bit boring. And this is pretty much it. I hope you like this video. I know it's long, and I'm looking forward to see how much my predictions, how good my predictions were, how close to the actual unit sizes and strengths we would see this. However, we would have to wait at least few months to see if this is true. Still, I was compelled to do that video because it's possible that we will get that DLC in 3 months, so this is something to look forward to. Anyhow, I hope you did like it. If you did, press like, leave a comment if you will, and see my other videos in my Let's Plays in Total War and some other games, and also my mechanics video to the Total War Warhammer and Rome 2. Thank you for watching. Bye.